Welcome to the My Way podcast with Andrew Jones. This is where entrepreneurs share their way of running a business. We'll discuss what skills and habits are required to scale a successful business. Today, I'm joined by Zach Gould. Zach is the founder of Zach Gould Golf, a successful amateur golfer who's now turned his passion for strength and conditioning to support golfers from around the world. Welcome to the My Way podcast, Zach. Thank you for taking the time to come on. I want to start off with your journey into golf. So, you started golf age 7. I think you picked up a club. I saw that your first ever round, having not ever played before, was 107. Now, for the listeners, that is unbelievable for a golfer of that age and that ability. You went from strength to strength. You represented Wales. You represented GB and Ireland. You played in the Junior Ryder Cup. Obviously, your dream was to make it in pro golf, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. What did you learn at such a young age?
Exactly that, really. I think when I reflect back on, I know I've done various different things now, I still think, I suppose, my identity is golf, and even the things from a business perspective and from an academic perspective, I think the skills and some of the life lessons I learned at a young age, I'm still using to date. I was sort of, I suppose, gravitated towards golf, individual-based sport. You have to it drives those sort of perfectionist qualities, some of the similar things in business as well. I think it was just ultimately about trying to be the best golfer I could possibly be, which has kind of stuck with me really from the various things that I went on to into academia and business and those types of things. But I think it's reflecting on that bit, it's probably trying to become the best version of yourself was probably the thing that really got me into golf and probably led me on to some of the things that I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's something I always say with people is, like if you're playing football, for example, and you win a game, you're happy. The issue is with golf is because you're recording every single shot, you always think, what if? And it kind of drives that behaviour to keep coming back to it. You went into academia, so you went to Cardiff Met, you did your strength and conditioning qualifications, you also did your PhD. What was it that brought you into entrepreneurship? What was the sort of motivation for it?
Good question, really. I suppose I don't think it was the leap to go into entrepreneurship itself. I was massively passionate about trying to innovate within the golf industry. Some of the burning things that sort of led me into strength and conditioning was I had poor coaching and poor guidance. Then I wanted to go and explore that as best as possible, which is why I then took the academic route. And I suppose what I quickly recognised from a strength and conditioning perspective, and non-golfers out there might think golfers don't need strength and conditioning. The modern golfers kind of changing that perception a little bit. But I recognise the benefit that fitness could bring to the golf world, not only from a performance perspective, but also from a longevity perspective. And there's very few golf-specific strength and conditioning coaches in the world. And I was getting a lot of, I suppose, traction in the UK. Lots of people travelling from all over really to come and see me face to face. More of the non-elite golfers was taking a bit of an interest because the best golfers in the world were showing the benefits, and I wanted to get everything I knew out there to the masses. The only way to do that at that point really was to go online, and that's where really I formed the company and developed platforms and services to serve as many golfers in the world as possible with online golf fitness, ultimately to improve performance and to increase longevity in the game. So that meant I had to start a business. And that's, I suppose, where that journey started really, but it come from my passion from a golf and fitness perspective, and to get that out there meant it was the business world.
It's something I suppose a lot of people talk about, and I'd like to get your views on it, especially for business longevity, is doing something that you're passionate about and that you've already got the knowledge. Do you think that's important?
Yeah, and it is difficult because I'm very lucky. I've turned my passion into a business, so I am lucky in that way. It takes hard work and it takes commitment and those types of things. What is challenging for some people, they do search for it a little bit too much. Like, what is my why? What is my passion? So it is a difficult one, and I'm not naive enough to think I did create it, but I did have the opportunity to create it as well through my golf and sort of academic experience. But you have to be passionate about what you're doing. don't there's pros and cons to entrepreneurship, but without sugarcoating it too much, it's 7 days a week. It's not a 40-hour week. You're constantly online. You're constantly, doing something, usually putting something wrong, right. But if you don't have that passion to start with, it does become extremely difficult to hang in there on days when, let's be honest, you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of them. And if you, like I said, if you're not passionate about it, what keeps bringing you back on the tough days?
I just want to touch upon something you said there around there's plenty of pros and cons to entrepreneurship. For the listeners that are listening to this, what comes to your mind when you say pros and what comes to your mind when you say cons?
Good question, because when I do think of that, when people do ask me about why I do what I do, on the positive side, there's always, the flip side to it is always the counter as well. So you do have that flexibility in terms of, I got 2 small kids, and so on. So I get to spend a lot of time with them. But then at the same time, on a Sunday night, I'm there checking in with clients, checking the marketing funnels, checking, the business strategy for the week. So you do get flexibility, but then the counter to that is you're always on. Like you've highlighted, I get to work in a space that I'm massively passionate about. So you don't have to get me out of bed on a Monday morning to go and do what I do. I absolutely love it. But the downside to that is it is kind of always on you. I think the earning potential is always an exciting one, because when you're employed, you kind of know what those steps look like. Do you know what I mean? In terms of promotion and those types of things. As a business owner, it's as big as or as small as you want to make it, really. So it's always a difficult one, because it's obviously, it's very positive, but at the same time it has its challenges. So it's getting that balance, basically.
It is. One of the things you mentioned there is, because you're extremely passionate about it, and I see this with a lot of business owners, is that you're always on. Now, that might not be on in terms of at the desk doing the work, but your mind's always going. You're taking work home with you. You sat down having your dinner, you're thinking about work. You're going to bed, you're thinking about the business. What would your advice be around how you manage that?
It's difficult. I'm being very transparent. I'm not the best at it. I have moments, you speak to my wife, where I'm in the kitchen, she's asked me questions, and I'm on a different planet. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking about
I know the feeling.
certain things and so on. So it is really difficult. It's something I suppose I've always struggled with from my playing days. Always been incredibly hardworking. To go and do a PhD and those types of things. You've got to have that sort of work ethic. For me, you really have to be selfish and book the time in. Whether that's right on a Friday night, we always do a Netflix series, or half term this week, purposely putting time in the diary where you are spending time with your family. I think you have to be very disciplined with that. Otherwise, I get the sense 60 years pass you by and all you've done is work. But the first bit is recognition and awareness. Once you've got that, then I think it's just putting strategies in place to help do it. But again, like I said, I don't think I'm the best at it, especially the stage I'm at within the business, because you're doing everything. Do you know what I mean? You're the content creator, you're the marketer, you're the servicer, you're doing everything within it. So I think it is just being aware of it and then putting clear strategies in place and sticking to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things people find the hardest is touching upon that is that because they want it so bad, they have the feeling inside that the more work they put in, the harder they work, the better they're going to do. And it's not always the case.
No.
Sometimes like slowing down, taking a step back, thinking about your strategy will help speed the business up. One of the things I've noticed from when we have our conversation, this might come from like your sporting background, is that I feel like you control the controllables really well. So anything that's inside of your sphere of control, you do it. You're consistent, you're disciplined. How have you built that?
I do see business like sport in a way. Do you know what I mean? And I do a lot of my examples when people do ask me questions, I do relate back to golf. I try not to do it too much in this instance.
That's all right.
But I think it's 2 things. It is getting your systems and your processes nailed. There's certain things you have to do within business for it to be successful. Golf's it's probably one of the best sports in the world at teaching you those things. And it's like I said, it's getting all the elements in place. Do you know what I mean? Everything from your branding through to your marketing strategy, your financing, your content creation, all those bits. I think that's one element, and you've got to be very consistent on your deliverables. The second element, I think, is managing your emotions within it. As we've all experienced as business owners, there's so many ups and downs. And it's still trying to stay really calm in those moments when things are not going well. It's being really calm and being clear, and vice versa. I think when things are really going well, not to get overexcited. But I think what I've recognised is it's an accumulative effect, basically. So if you deliver on the fundamentals day in, day out, it gives you the best opportunity of success. And they're the things that really drive me from like that internal motivation perspective, because you have to do it very well at golf, and I believe you have to do it very well in business to be successful. So it's probably something I've kind of inherited from my golf days more than anything.
One of the things when I speak to you as well, when we have our conversations, is that I feel like you've got an incredible amount of resilience. Now, that's simple things. Like I feel like nothing holds you back, not the opinions of friends, not the opinions of family or other people. It feels like you've got this mission and you're on it. Why is that important, and how did you build it?
I think the resilience thing does come from, I suppose, failures. And I know lots of people say, you got to fail to learn and those different things. But as you've highlighted in my career, I see there's been a lot of failures in ways. Do you know what I mean? Seeing that I wanted to be one of the best golfers in the world, that didn't happen. Put all that energy into academia. In a weird way, although I become a PhD in different things, I don't know if I fulfilled the full potential in that side either. But it's definitely around sort of these milestones in your life. Do I care what people think at times? Yes. Do you know what I mean? And that is a blocker from time to time. But I think there's a few things. I've got a great network around me. So I've got a really good support network. That's massively important. So I think, you're a coach by nature. I'm a coach by nature. I think we need that guidance to give us the sort of push that we need. I'm very open-minded, so I will speak to lots of people. I'm quite open and honest with people because I want that in return. And I feel like I take kind of the best bits really from the people I meet and the conversations I have, and then I shape that into a strategy. And then once I get really clear on that, I just go 100% into that, and then I review it. Has it been successful? Do you know what I mean? What's worked, what's not worked? And then I keep refining time after time on those things. So it's a combination of loads of different things, but I don't want to be, I suppose, naive to say, I don't care what anyone thinks. I think we all have that sort of self-consciousness in a way. But then I suppose to really give you the push you need is why are we doing this? Do you know what I mean? I'm doing this because I want to give the world of golf the best services possible. There's other things, you know what I mean? Time with my family, all those different bits. But that's at its core, and I suppose that's what gives me the push to just keep going with it, really.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned previously there was about one of the hardest things in business is to manage your emotions, and I'd agree with that. Is something could happen to one person in a business, like sale falls through, doesn't come off, doesn't happen. One person's thinking, oh, for God's sake, like this is ridiculous now. Like, why always me? Another person is thinking, well, why did it happen? What do I learn from it? How do I improve in the future? What do you do personally to try and help you manage your emotions in times when things maybe aren't going your way?
You can laugh at this. The first thing I do is I laugh.
It's okay.
I do. I laugh, and it probably sort of lessens emotion a bit. I laugh because I think this is, so when something bad happens, I laugh because like this is the moment that people either avoid and run away from, or attack, do you know what I mean, and get over aggressive and lose control of the emotion. But I giggle to myself, so I'd be like, this is actually what business is about. If you want all of these opportunities and you want the lifestyle and all the different things, these are the moments you have to overcome. And I just have a little giggle to myself. I digest it. I never react. I try and let it go 24 hours at least. And then I try and get a clear chain of thought then in terms of what are my next steps, in terms of direction I go. But a weird coping mechanism that I developed is a giggle. So I'm like, this is why people don't do it.
Yeah.
And it probably just settles things a little bit, but I know time is a healer on these things. So I like to take my time, do you know what I mean? And then I suppose develop a strategy that I think is going to work best for where I want to go next.
Yeah, it's spot on. I think sometimes you can take it too seriously. And also, I think you need to be going into entrepreneurship with a mindset that those things are going to happen. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And when I remind myself of that, I think it's really important. Social media might tell you that you should be driving a Lambo, you should be absolutely making millions. But the reality is, as I know through sitting down with hundreds of entrepreneurs, it's never as simple as you think it's going to be.
No.
One thing that you're really good at is spending time working on the business. Like, you talked to me previously about you booking out half a day a month and you review what you're doing. Talk the listeners through that process and what you do and why it's important.
So I suppose looking at it both short term and long term, I do something every single week. I know we discussed this in the past, but on a Sunday night, I write down what the focus is for the week. Here's the process is, I've got a book like yourself, old school, write down the key bits I have to get through for the week. I think they're the bits that keep the momentum in terms of the progression. But on the first of every single month, I usually go into town, sometimes on my own. A few people have started to join me now, actually. And I just do a review of the month, really. No different to when I was playing golf. I sit down, right, what went well out there on the golf course, what didn't go so well. But the key bit then is what the actions are moving forward for the next four weeks. I usually then have a couple of drinks and just sort of let it digest and just get clear. But there's those focuses. As you know, I've got a really good mentor in my life as well. And a strategy that I find very useful is it takes 10 minutes to do a 10-minute Loom recording on the first of every single month. Exactly that, really. What was the focus from last month? Have I hit those targets? What went well? What didn't go so well? This is what I'm going to focus on next month. And the bit for that for me is it gives me the clarity. It gives me the accountability, which is why, I'm so bought into what you do, because you have to have that accountability. We can talk about this stuff all day. The amount of business owners potentially out there on their own, which is me, but again, I know I've got a great network. If you don't have those people in place that you're accountable to, you won't get the job done. So I do it for the accountability, and also I need it for perspective. Do you know what I mean? Someone who is not, sat in front of the same computer I'm sat in front of in the same industry, doing the same stuff. You need that sort of external or that perspective brought in. So there's many reasons I do it. That's my process that I like to go through. And it's been effective. Don't get me wrong, it's been improved. And I get better at that as well. I get better at that review. I get better at the actions. I get clearer, keep refining, keep improving. So they're the little things I like to do on an ongoing basis. And, that's what works.
One of the things I love about it is that, and I can tell that you do it because you're very intentional. I think one of the things I see when I'm working with a lot of business owners, especially at the beginning of coaching agreements, is that they're sleepwalking through the business. Yeah. They're doing the same things over and over again, day in, day out, and they're hoping for a different result. And I love that half day for you is to think creatively, think of new ideas, think strategically, and then obviously revisit it. You mentioned about you've got that mentor in your life, someone that is very successful. What have you learned from them? Which is a hard question because I'm sure there's a lot.
Lots, really. It is a tricky one because I think in business, of course, you've got to have the technical skills. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think they're given. I think you've got to get into business. You've got to start doing it. You've got to start feeling it and those types of things. You have to have the technical skills. Do you know what I mean? Understanding your branding, knowing your balance sheet, knowing your marketing strategy, all those bits, your customer problems and different things. So I think it's those things, but I think you go on a journey in business of finding those things out anyway. In terms of, I suppose, some of the high level stuff, you're not alone. I think you can think at times, why is this happening to me? I'm the only one. Like you said, you turn on social media, it's okay for this person because X, they're in this position. At the end of the day, we all have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be someone on there who's super famous, they start a business and it flies. There's going to be someone else who isn't super famous, but they got great business strategy and it flies. I think you have to find out your strengths and weaknesses, hire if you need to. Do you know what I mean? Get support in terms of the areas you need support on. But just be really tactical, I think, at what you're good at, and get support where you're not. I think that's the probably one of the biggest challenges really in business is you try and do everything, but sometimes you might not be good at that thing. So get help.
It's hard, isn't it? At what point, like when I look at you and your business, you've learned an awful amount yourself. Like if you think about it, from the website to the social media to the SEO to the machine of that subscription model, I feel like you've really thrown yourself into all the different elements. Someone else might just say, do you know, I'm not good at that, I'm going to just outsource it. But what you have that they don't is that you've already got the knowledge at a baseline level. So you're not going to get tucked up. You can ask the right questions. And I think that's really important.
Well, you know this yourself. When I first sat in the NatWest Accelerator program, I remember sitting in that room, just finished my PhD. I had all the golf credibility, all the academic credibility. I thought, right, this is it. I must have made it now. This is where I'm supposed to be. I never felt so out of my depth at that point as I ever have previously, really, in my career, because I'm sat in a room, 80 entrepreneurs, everything from startups through to established businesses. I'm like, I don't know nothing. And it's the journey you go on really to find those things out. I've learned the hard way on certain things. But it's like you've said, what I try to do now is I have a go at it myself. At least I understand the basics and the fundamentals. And if you do need external support, at least you can manage that. Yeah. If you just outsource it totally, you could get burnt. Do you know what I mean? And there's some of the harder lessons in business and in life. But I got the mindset, right, let me have a go at it. Let's find out the basics. Right, now let's find someone who can do it better than I can. Now it's set up and in place. So it's been an incredible journey, because especially on some of the things you talk about on the marketing strategy and the automations and the systems, I suppose that's what I do now from a day-to-day basis.
Because there's obviously a lot of information out there. If there's an entrepreneur or business owner listening to this, where would you direct them and what would you say to them?
I think now I got the confidence I can do it. I think that's the first thing. I think some people just go, I can't do it. Let's just pay someone else to do it.
Yeah.
I think I got the confidence to do it, but just self-discovery, really. So you need somewhere to start. Everyone goes on YouTube, do you know what I mean? The basics are setting up Facebook ads, do you know what I mean? You could go and do all those bits, then have a go. Do you know what I mean? Have a go, set it up, break it, learn from it, have another go, improve it. So I think it's just you got to fall really in love with that process and really trying to understand it. It's easy to shortcut it and go, I can't bother doing that. Let's pay someone else to. But if it goes wrong, at the end of the day, you're the captain of the ship, really. Yeah. So if it goes wrong, you're the one that's going to fall on, not an agency or someone else.
You know what's like really interesting when I listen to you talking about that is that essentially that comes down to you allowing yourself to fail. I think so many people are too hard on themselves that they don't allow themselves to give it a go, because if they make that mistake, they beat themselves up. See, I told you couldn't do it. Like, just get rid of this. Let's just outsource it. Whereas you've got the mindset of, you know, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, and I'll learn from it. And I'll improve. Yeah,
and it is a tricky one, failure, isn't it? Because it does depend on how you perceive it. But like, that's exactly what you just said there. Failure is just learning from the experience. Do you know what I mean? All you're valuing then is the outcome. Do you know what I mean? If you just fall in love with the process and learn along the way, the outcome's the outcome. I mean, you can't control that. All you can do is just focus on what you can control. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose I have started to develop that skill. Don't get me wrong, I hate it. It's probably the thing that still drives me the most. I don't want to fail. But I don't see it now I do see it as a negative at times, but I just see it as an opportunity for future direction.
You talked about the NatWest Accelerator coming into that was an environment of just innovation and creativity. And there's a lot of personalities in that environment. We take on 80 businesses every 6 months. When I was working there for the listeners, imposter syndrome, I think that's something that really holds a lot of people back. And I feel like one day somewhere you get over that and you start taking action no matter what. What would your advice be to someone that does have that imposter syndrome and thinks, I can't do this or I'm not good enough?
No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the first bit. I think when you start, you think everybody's got it worked out. I've worked with some massive brands recently, and we're all in the same boat. We're all still learning and chasing our tail and scrambling at the last minute. I think so. Don't feel like you need to have it worked out all the time. Like I said, we've certain people got certain skills. We got weaknesses in certain areas. Don't get me wrong, it is a challenge. Do you know what I mean? Being on your own. But nobody's got it figured out. And if anybody says they 100% have, they're lying to you. That's the first thing. I think it's just getting settled with that. And then just, like I said, just being very smart, really, in terms of your execution of the business and where you're at, what's your skill set, and the direction you need to take it in, and just give it your best, really.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the most important traits you can have to be a successful business owner?
Yeah, it's it's tricky because there's certain things that are non-negotiable. Do you know what I mean? Hard work, creativity, intelligence. Like there's certain things you're just gonna have to have in place if this is gonna work. The big thing, and I know we have touched on it, is just managing your emotion. That's the biggest mediator for me on whether people sink or swim, because there's so many roller coasters with it, and if you're not prepared for the ups and downs, that's the bit I believe that puts people off. Some people love it. Some people just love, do you know what I mean? They love the war of it, and they love the ups and downs of it. So I think it's accepting they're going to come, and knowing it's not you and failure's not the end. All the other bit is non-negotiable. Do you know what I mean? Working 90-hour weeks, hard working, creativity, intelligence, all these different bits, they're non-negotiable to me. But I think it's managing your emotions on the good and the bad times.
What I find, what I love when you say like trust the process, it comes back to sport. But I think there's one thing that I think a lot of people don't have, and I struggle with it at times, I'm not going to say I don't, is patience. That when you think about that mentor that you know, and when I've met successful business owners, they have utmost belief in the process, and they know it'll happen because they're doing all the right things. And I think sometimes where people throw in the towel or they have enough is because they haven't got that patience to do something, not just for a year or 2 years. We're talking 10, 15, 20 years. Well, if you see someone who's in their late 50s or early 60s and they're successful, you've got to remember they've had 25, 30 years of doing that over and over again and learning, which I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah. I think we're in a difficult time, really, because obviously social media is still in its infancy. And there is the, I suppose, perception that people make it overnight. You look at the majority of wealthy or successful people, like you said, they're in their 50s, 60s. So for us to want to have it in our mid-30s, it's just unrealistic. Do you know what I mean? I think it is just managing your expectations on that. And it does take time to build a big, successful, established business. And as entrepreneurs are, I don't see myself as an entrepreneur in this way, because I don't feel I'm that creative. But lots of entrepreneurs jump around so much. Do you know what I mean? They start one business, next week they're doing a totally different business in a totally different industry, which I get because that's kind of their nature. So they have to manage those bits. But the success you're getting now is the work you've done 6 months ago. Do you know what I mean? And it's like fitness in that way. Do you know what I mean? If you want to be in great shape, you have to eat well, train well for the next 6 months, and then look in the mirror. You can't just go and do one gym session and you look the way in which you want to look. So, and it's the same thing with this. You have to see it through. You have to believe in the process, and you have to see it through. So you're the person who has to have the resilience to keep it going, and the patience. The hard bit is then to have the open mind as to when it's not quite working. When do you make that shift? When do you make that change? That's the tricky bit, because again, some of the experience I've seen in terms of some of the business I've seen is they keep going down a rabbit hole then, and they don't know when to press the reset button. That's where good mentors and good guidance and different things, that's where you need them. So that you've been at this for long enough now. What's the other options? So it's you as a business owner do have to have that mindset, but I think you need the right strategies and structures in place for someone to be like, you need to come over here now and probably just pivot a little.
One of the things you touched upon there was around social media, and it's the good sides of social media. Look, you can grow an online brand, you can build a business from your bedroom. The bad side of social media is, and this comes back to that patience piece I was saying, is that everyone's telling you there's an easier way. And I think you've got to be so, you don't want to go into the world being cynical, but you've also got to repeat, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And I think that's hard because you have all these people around you, especially in the online fitness space that you're in, saying, if you want to make like I've seen some stupid things recently. If you want to make £500,000 a month,
Yeah.
do these 3 simple things. You're like, hang on, come on.
Yeah. I think it is, it is looking past all that stuff. It is built on perception, and I get it. They're doing clickbait, trying to get you in their funnels, all those different things. But I think it does come back to doing something just true to your values. Do you know what I mean? I want to build a long-term, profitable, sustainable business. I don't want people coming on my platform, using it for a week and then going, oh, that's nothing I signed up to. Do you know what I mean? I was reading some of my Google reviews recently, and they said, you get exactly what you pay for. And I thought that was one of the best reviews you can possibly get in a way, because it's like, yeah, it's honest. He delivers on what he says he can do. And for me, it's about, I want to find customers that are my lifers. That's what I describe them as. I know they're going to come on my platform and they're going to stay with me for life. If you promise someone to make £1 million a month and you don't make £1 million in your first month, you ain't staying. And we know why they do it. But that's what's true to my values and who I am as a person. I try to ignore the rest. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult when people are trying to overpromise and underdeliver. But if you find your life is within your business, you'll have something sustainable and you're building it to last.
Okay. One thing I love about that quality is I think I see a trend at the moment where there's a complete lack of quality in certain businesses or certain things because they just want that short win.
Yeah.
If you want to be doing this for 5 or 10 years and to look back and be proud of what you've done, quality first.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we know, the hardest thing is to get customers. That's the hardest thing. So if it's not built on something that's world class, let's say, they're not going to stay. So build something that's good first and then get them in and then they'll stay. Do you know what I mean? Because it's the hardest bit. Keeping customers should be easier than attracting them. So it's exactly what you said. Build something the best you possibly can first.
Talking about the listeners potentially, if an entrepreneur or business owner is listening to this and they are stuck in that rut, right, where they're not sure of which direction to go in, their business isn't moving forward. When you've had potentially moments like that in your business, what do you do?
Talk, but not to too many people. Talk to the right people. It's difficult because I personally think, not always, but I do think you need to speak to people who have had some sort of experience of where you're at. If you speak to someone who hasn't, and it's not to be, because there's a lot of smart people out there, it's not to be dismissive of those people. The advice possibly could be damaging and lead you in the wrong direction. So just, if you can get it for free, go and sound it out with someone who's got that experience, a great mentor or coach or whoever it might be. You have to sound these things in. Don't just bottle them up and just sit on them for too long. The worst thing you can do is nothing.
Yeah.
Just sit and
I think people
no
forget
action.
that, don't they? Doing nothing isn't.
Even if you do something wrong, go and do something.
Yeah.
It gives you a best chance. I'm a massive believer in mentors and coaches and people, because we can't do it alone. We do need support. The tricky bit for business owners is finding those right people. Yeah,
it is very difficult. Like if you look at the online space, there's so many different conflicting opinions, and you go with the wrong person and it could be the end of your business.
Yeah.
So you are right. It's having the intuition to pick the right person. So what is, looking ahead, let's look ahead at Zach Gould Golf. What does the future look like?
Weirdly, separate from the business, love to get back playing again. I think that's a big an itch I'm still trying to scratch in a weird way. I'll never let go of that totally. And by the way, I think it has a massive positive on the business. When I show my golf side of what I do and I link it back to fitness, the engagement goes through the roof. So I think on a personal front, it's getting back competing in some capacity. I got some incredible projects next year, which I can't share too much on, but with some big brands that really ticks a lot of boxes in terms of like youth development and those types of things. But America is probably an area that I really want to, I suppose, increase my own brand awareness in. Really, it's the #1 golf population in the world. It's got the best players, got the best courses, and so on. So I think it's just more exposure in America, really. But where I'm at, really happy with. Got a great balance in terms of lifestyle. I get to play golf. I get great videos. It has its stresses. So again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it too much. But in terms of what I created and a lifestyle and a flexibility, I'm in a really good place with it. So I think it's just slowly ramping it up from there. And like I said, doing things that tick boxes for me and my values and kind of where I want to go in my future. So I don't want to put a number on it or anything like that because they don't exist.
Stick to the process.
Do you know what I mean? I just want to stick to the process and just keep enjoying what I'm doing.
Good, amazing. Zach, that brings an end to the podcast there. I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to come on. I love your honesty. I think that's really important. It's the message that we're trying to share through this podcast is the real side of entrepreneurship, and I have no doubt that you're going to be a massive success in the future. Thank you.